Hi, BookTube. Welcome back to the channel at the History Shelf, where today's a little departure, as we do. We like to indulge our fancy for mysteries, and who's the best mystery writer ever but Miss Agatha Christie?
It's true.
It's true. So we're here to wrap up They Do It With Mirrors, previously known as
Murder with Mirrors.
Murder with Mirrors.
Sorry.
All right, so we're going to talk about the book, then we're going to move into the adaptations, and then maybe we'll touch upon the recent little kerfluffle with all of the rewriting of Agatha Christie's work, Dame Agatha Christie.
Right.
She is a dame.
Dame. There's nothing like a dame.
Yeah, so out of the 4 out of 5 stars, 5 stars is the highest you can get. There go the dogs behind us making noise already. I gave it a 4. I thought it was a decent read. I flew through it. It had a little bit of everything. It had a shooting. It had a hint of poisoning, so you had two ways you could go there. Also, she fooled me. I guessed the wrong people. Yes.
We should be keeping track of your scores.
Yeah, we should be keeping track of my scores. Well, actually, we shouldn't.
Well,
I haven't been right yet, I don't think.
No, your scores, like 4 out of 5.
Oh, yeah.
So you can compare them and say,
yeah.
Is this a higher 4, stronger or weaker 4 out of 5? I would give it a 2.5.
Ooh, that's a low score.
Sorry.
Do you want to tell me why, or should I just go ahead and just give a brief recap of the story?
Recap?
It's a brief recap of the story.
I'll give a brief recap. No, it wasn't crap. I think I said this on your comments board, but I was underwhelmed when I saw the Hickson and the Mackenzie adaptation years ago. And I thought, well, maybe the book will change my mind. And it didn't. So, it just wasn't... I've decided that there's a certain type of Marple story that gets me hooked in. And it has to be creepy. And it has to be sort of dire. And it has to be kind of gothic.
Like dark.
Dark.
Okay.
It was a dark and stormy night. And this wasn't. This was a bunch of people, a bunch of eccentric people gathered around talking. Eccentric
people, some of them are do-gooders.
Which is kind of boring.
Kind of boring, although there was one epic exchange between Miss Marple and Lewis that I loved. And I wrote it down because I'm going to read it to you. Because I like the way she thinks. But not just Miss Marple, but Agatha Christie when she wrote this. Okay, so the basic setup is, Miss Marple has 2 girlhood friends that she was very close to back in the day. And they're both American. They're sisters. I don't know what their maiden name was, but
it says it. But can I just say, because I made this point to you as well, I think this is the first time that we actually see or make note of Marple in her younger days. So this is kind of our first element of backstory. So all of my crap about, she's iconic, nobody needs to know her past. Well, apparently Ms. Christie disagreed with me.
Yes.
So I stand corrected on that one.
Yes. Yeah, so basically she's talking to her friend Ruth, and who's worried about her sister, Carrie Louise, who is now working on her third husband, right?
Yes.
She's been married a lot, Carrie Louise has.
She's made a decent industry of it.
She has, which makes for a very weird blended family with a lot of intricate relations. It's going to be a mouthful to try to describe all these people, but... she's worried about her because she's out at this place called Stony Gates, which is like a reform home, right, for boys, juvenile delinquents.
She's turned her home over into this to serve this purpose.
To serve the purpose, along with her not pioneering, but her husband, who's definitely a philanthropist and all this kind of stuff. Lewis, Sarah Cold. So we've got Carrie Louise, Sarah Cold, and so Ruth is like, please just go out there under this pretense. You want to talk about that? Where
so I was asking Peggy, what did you think about the pretense? And she's like, oh, it's fine. And they don't make anything of it. But I was like, don't don't ask Jane to pretend that she's hard on her luck and she needs to be put up for a week or two or a month or two.
Well, Jane didn't seem to mind.
Jane didn't mind, which just, I mean, I was feeling like, don't do it, Jane. But Jane's like, no, I'm actually a better person than you. I will do it because if you say that there's a problem, then there's a problem.
Yeah.
And I don't need to know more than that, which just tells you all two very important things about Jane Marple right there.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So she dutifully heads out there, meets up with her one of her best friends. It's very kind of endearing to see them greeting each other again.
A little bit of the rivalry at the train station.
Yes. Well, I was going to get to that.
Yeah. Sorry.
So a young man picks up Miss Marple, or attempts to, and his name is Edgar Lawson. He's kind of a nervous type, kind of, very self-conscious. He is the assistant, the personal secretary to Mr. Serocold, Louis Serocold. Mm-hmm. So Edgar Lawson, immediately, you're like, something's not right with this guy. And in fact, that's what Miss Marple says throughout the beginning of the book. Mm-hmm. There's something off about this boy. Mm-hmm. And then we find out later, as she's roaming the grounds, that he's like, I'm Winston Churchill's son. I am,
It's a small thing. I mean,
so she's like, uh-huh.
You don't know.
So, but then he tries to take her back to Stonygates, and then here comes Gina roaring up, this vivacious
stealing his thunder.
Italian woman, whatever. You guys, leave.
They have words.
Leave Goldie alone.
Oh.
They're trying to pull the blanket off of her.
Here.
Sorry, Goldie. Sorry, we have a little doggy drama here. They always want to disrupt things. So anyway.
Oh.
It's okay. So anyway, Gina is the... Okay. See, this is where Carrie Louise's marriages it gets kind of complicated. So her second... No, it's okay. Her second marriage was to a kind of a raffish guy, Johnny Resterick.
Is it raffish or raffish?
I think it's raffish. It's raffish. And they couldn't... Well, what happened? They adopted... Oh, God. Honey,
they adopted a child first, and then they had a child.
The adopted child was Pippa. Mm-hmm. Okay?
So there's two daughters.
And then they had a child, which was Mildred.
Right. The daughter they didn't think they'd be able to have.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, but you see that nothing changed after that, except that they seem to even focus more attention on Pippa and not their natural-born child, which was, odd. You think they would just be equal with both, but I think they were trying to
But it's odd to begin with, and then you kind of find out the backstory and you find out why.
But Pippa, the adopted child, had a daughter, Gina. Mm-hmm. So technically, Gina is Carrie Louise's granddaughter.
Yep.
Okay. I think we got that straight. There were two boys that Johnny Resterick brought into the marriage. Stephen and Alex.
Douchey and Douchey.
The Douche brothers.
Yeah.
They're very, they're into theater and putting on plays at this reform school. They're very theatrical. And Gina has a flair for that, too.
Yeah.
She just kind of knows that she's beautiful and men are falling all over themselves. And she's like, hey, I'm owning it, while I can. Doesn't confront me. And she doesn't know what that means.
I do.
Okay.
Because you say it a lot.
I do. And so she's like, I'm just going to own it right now. Anyway, Gina is married to an American. American who fought in World War II.
Yeah.
And his name is Walter Shaw, but everyone calls him Wally. And so he's on site.
Which is a bit derogatory, because if you're a Wally, you're kind of a bit of a drip.
A bit of a drip, but he's not.
I like him.
I like him
he's
too.
My favorite.
I did like Wally. I thought he was fantastic.
Yeah. He's understated is the thing.
Understated, but he was damn right.
Yeah.
He had a great line in there when Edgar does one of his weird things, and he's like, that guy's crackers. That's what he says in the book. That guy's just crackers. Mm-hmm. That's an American just putting it out there for you the way it really is. Mm-hmm. So. Mm-hmm. So he's staying on at the Stony Gates. He's not happy to be there. No. I think he feels like, what am I doing here?
Yeah, he's from Wisconsin or something.
Yeah, he's like, I don't agree with what you're doing. And what is all this?
Yeah. He loves this woman, but he's like,
right.
There's a lot of craziness going around. And the puppies agree.
Yeah, so So I think we've got that. Oh, and then the ever faithful attendant is Miss Belliver, or Belliver, who they call Jolly. And she is
she's not very.
She's not very, but she's very dedicated to Carrie Louise. So, and then you have Lewis, Sarah Cold. Am I missing any other players? Oh, yeah, but he's very minor. Well, Dr. Maverick.
Yeah, which is an interesting name.
Dr. Maverick, and he kind of works closely with Lewis on trying to help some of these boys
He's
break out of their habits.
Behavioralist or whatever.
Yeah, behavioralist. So, this is the stew that Miss Marple is dropped into.
Yeah.
She's like, I'm just gonna go around and start talking to people, which is what they do in this book.
Yeah.
And
Picks up a little garden trowel and goes off and starts to make small talk.
she wants to see what's going on. So I'm trying to figure out where the things really kick off.
Well, everybody is kind of, or at least my perception was that people are kind of.
Oh, we forgot a major character.
Oh, go ahead.
Mr. Galbranson.
Oh, right.
I mean, he's the guy that ends up getting shot.
Yeah.
So, okay, so Christian Galbranson is the... Okay. Carrie Louise's first husband was, I think, Eric Galbranson. And this was the natural child of his other marriage. I don't think that was her son. No, but
Because she only has the one daughter.
Yes. So obviously, so he was like a stepchild to her.
Yeah.
Okay, so he comes out to visit, and he's like,
He's worried about her as well.
He's very worried. He seems to be asking a lot about her health and her heart, and then is asking other people, including Miss Marple,
Right.
do you know anything? Have you noticed anything? And she's like, no.
Which is a pointed question, but we don't understand why at this point.
Right, why is he so focusing on this? And he's kind of looking around the room at all these people, and he's like, I'm here to see Lewis. They're like, he's out. He's like, well, when will he be back? I guess I have to stay.
Yeah.
I have to stay and wait for him because this is very urgent business. Well, Miss Marple spies Lewis and Mr. Galbranson out by the car after Lewis comes back, and they're talking. She overhears a little bit of their conversation.
In the way she does.
Which raises some interest about, like, oh, we have to keep this from Carrie Louise or something like this.
Yeah.
So she's like, she files that away in her memory. Anyway, it's going on.
Is there a comment about Miss Marple's hearing and how, she's old, but her sense of her hearing is very, very sharp, as several people in the village can attest? Isn't it? I noticed
maybe.
a comment like that. Yeah,
Maybe.
She probably has the hearing of a bat.
Yes, a fruit bat or something. So, shenanigans ensue after dinner one evening, and they all kind of... Oh, my copy of the book has a great map of the layout.
Your reaction first was, oh no, we're back to maps.
Well, no, we're back to maps, but
Yeah.
it actually helped me imagine the setup.
Yeah.
We've got the Great Hall, which is where everyone is when things go awry. There's the study across the hall. And then this is where the murder, the Mr. Galbranson is shot. Anyway, they have dinner. They move into the Great Hall.
And it's one of Christie's crazy dinners where, that game, like, who would you invite to, anybody in history, alive or dead, who would you invite to dinner? I think Christie took that to heart, and she was like, okay, I want all of these very different people, and it's kind of dysfunctional and kind of discordant a little bit.
It was very discordant. But anyway, they're trying to just have an evening and hang out. Mr. Galbranson had talked to Lewis outside, but then he's like, do you need anything in your room? He's like, just a typewriter. I gotta write some letters. So Jolly's like, I can set you up with that. So he goes off to his room to write letters. Meanwhile, the rest of the crew is in the Great Hall, just chatting. Stephen wanders over to the piano. Everyone takes up a different position in the room, so which becomes important later.
Of course.
But Edgar Lawson kicks in the door and has a tantrum and blames Lewis for ruining his life and a bunch of other things. And then Lewis takes him gently by the arm and says, let's go into
Takes him gently by the ear. And,
let's go into my office. So that's the study that I showed you in the map.
So potential red herrings there, or...
So I thought, okay, so now the rest of them are overhearing this massive argument from the study with behind the closed doors, two closed doors, and I think it's two closed doors, and they're all just kind of sitting there, and someone says, shouldn't we check on them? I thought Edgar Lawson had something in his pocket.
Oh, right.
And so someone's like, it might be a gun. And Carrie Louise is just, Carrie Louise is just amazingly disconnected. And she's like, he's not going to hurt him. He likes him. She's just so serene and disconnected.
Is she serene or is she disconnected? I was gonna talk about that a little bit. One of the first things Marple does when she shows up is tries to sort of corner her, but get her into a one-on-one, like, hey, how are you really doing? Because the suggestion is that she's kind of frail and that really her life is in danger, and she's just like, it's all water off a duck's back. She's like, I'm fine. I don't know what the problem is. I don't know why people are fussing. It's
right.
She really isn't concerned about too much. And the question in my mind was, is she blind to the threat that she might be in? Or is she like resigned to her fate in some weird way? Or does she not care? Or
is she just acknowledging the fact that nothing is wrong? Like nothing is about to hurt her. Yeah. She, which we find out later in the book, she was right all along.
Yeah.
Because they do it with mirrors, right? Smoke and mirrors.
Yeah.
So let me just back up a little bit. So she is unconcerned. Then we hear a couple of shots, right? Mm-hmm. Everyone's rushing out. You know, when I was reading the book, I was like, oh dear, there's something going on with the fact that this is happening in another room and people are overhearing things. Yeah. Anything can be faked. Yeah. You know what I'm like? So so this is the red flag number one. I'm like, so maybe it's one of these, it's both these guys are in on it or one guy. Right. You know, and then okay, so I started off that way. But then their shots are fired, and there's actually bullet holes in the wall. Mm-hmm. And someone's like, "Oh my God, he could have killed you," you know. And he's like, "No, he didn't." It's like the bullet holes were right by your desk. He could have easily hit you. Yeah. He blows it off, and he wants him to talk to Dr. Maverick rather than calling the police.
Wait, who's he in this?
Lewis.
Okay.
Okay, so then they go to check on. Mr. Jolly is like, I think I should just check in on our guest.
Just shooting. Are you okay?
Yeah, and then she finds him face down over his typewriter, and so he's been shot.
Yeah, and he's mid-note as well.
Huh?
He's midway through a note.
Midway through a sentence on the typewriter. Mm-hmm. Okay. So now the police will come out for that, and that is Inspector Curry this time. Although, with his assistant, and I'm forgetting his last name. It might have been Lovejoy.
Although there's a difference in the adaptation.
Yeah. We can I don't want to go on those adaptations.
No,
piss
the
me
Hickson
off.
one.
Well, yeah.
You were unhappy with both of them.
I was. Okay, so we just go down this road where what's going on? What was Gulbranson doing in there? What was he writing?
What was he concerned about?
What was he concerned about?
What was so urgent?
What comes into play is the fact that Lewis decides to, confide in Miss Marple that he believed that she was being poisoned.
Right.
Because she's she's frail and unwell, and she's been complaining about aching legs, and she takes a tonic every night that Jolly gives her.
And Lewis knows that they're in an Agatha Christie novel, so he's like, "Haha, poison!" So he's. I thought that was a nice knowing touch that the any readers would be like, "Well, it's been poison every other step of the way, so sure, that he's because he comes across as very." Very much an advocate of Carrie Louise, and very proud of her, and very affectionate with her, and very much in love with her.
Very much.
Yeah.
Very much.
I'm going to get you guys. You guys have been stinky.
So as the investigation proceeds, there was an interesting exchange between oh gosh, I got the page wrong. Sorry. Between Miss Marple and Lewis. She's like, well, Ruth was concerned, and Ruth was right, if this is if something is going on. Mm-hmm. She's like, so it's like, then who killed Mr. Gulbranson? It's she's like, do you have any concerns about the boys here at this juvenile retreat? And he's like, oh no, I don't, She goes, well, what about how do you feel about Carrie Louise's stepson, or her stepsons, Stephen and Alex? And he's like, he's giving her his take on it. I love this exchange. They're talking about Gina's husband, and he's like, she goes, well, there's Gina's husband, isn't there? Right? And because this is where we're going into her little dialogue on Americans versus the English. She goes, well, there's Gina's husband, isn't there? And yes, said Louis gravely, there is Gina's husband. You don't really know much about him, and one can't help seeing that he's a very unhappy young man. That's Miss Marple. Louis sighed. He hasn't fitted in here, no. He's no interest in or sympathy. He's no interest in or sympathy for what we're trying to do. But after all, why should he? He's young, crude, and he comes from a country where a man is esteemed by the success he makes of life. And then Miss Marple with her zinger. Whilst here, we are so very fond of failures. Louis Sericold looked at her sharply and suspiciously. She flushed a little and murmured rather...
Like, did I say that out loud?
Yeah, and rather incoherently. I think sometimes, one can overdo things the other way. I mean, the young people with a good heredity and brought up wisely in a good home and with grit and pluck and the ability to get on in life, well, they are really, when one comes down to it, the sort of people a country needs. I was like, woo! I was like, yes! She was like, it was fantastic. And of course, he's frowning at all of this. And then Miss Marple's getting pinker by the minute. and she keeps getting deeper into it. This is great. She's like, not that I don't appreciate, I do indeed, you and Carrie Louise, a really noble work, real compassion, and one should have compassion, because after all, it's what people are that counts. Good and bad luck, and much more expected, and rightly, of the lucky ones. But I do think sometimes one's sense of proportion, oh, I don't mean you, Mr. Sericold.
Present company accepted.
Really, I don't know what I mean. But the English are rather odd that way. Even in war, so much prouder of their defeats and their retreats than of their victories. And you know me as a military historian. I was like, that is absolutely true. It's absolutely true.
Well, with the exception of World War II. But,
Well, no, listen. She says, foreigners can never understand why we're so proud of Dunkirk.
Okay.
See? It's the sort of thing they'd prefer not to mention themselves, but we always seem to be almost embarrassed by a victory and treat it as though it weren't quite nice to boast about it.
Well, that's still true. That's still true.
And look at all of our poets, the Charge of the Light Brigade, and Little Revenge Went Down in the Spanish Main. It's really a very odd characteristic when you come to think of it. So then she draws a big breath of air after that whole diatribe. And I was just like, oh, I'm marking this down because I love that exchange. Yes, Agatha Christie.
I like when Jane kind of sticks her foot in it. That's one thing. That's why I don't understand why you don't hear Hickson. And it's not Hixson, which is what you wrote.
Did I write that?
Yes.
That was just a mistake.
But anyway, I because I think she does that sort of babble, that sort of, and then, really pays attention to her knit and her purl.
Yeah.
Because she's like, oh shit, I said something in my outside voice. I do like that about her.
Yes. So were there any surprises in the book for you? I mean, I'm going to kind of just wind it up just to say that, she helps out Inspector Curry greatly with his investigation. I'm trying to think of what she... it was the parallel with the theater group that Stephen and Gina were all doing, and then made her start turning the wheels in her head about how this murder could have taken place with those people in the room. And then she recalls, well, very much like what happened in the study was, if it was set up like a stage set, it would have been backstage. Yeah. Which is like, so what is back there? We don't know what they're doing. And it all came down to the windows, the window access. But she has to kind of discern what's going on, and at the end of it, we find out that I'm just kind of wrapping it up because we got to go into the adaptations now. But she finds out that well, how did she find out that? It turned out that Louis Aracold was in some trouble with the Gulbranson Trust, which was what
Yes, he had been taking money.
he'd been taking money.
Yeah.
And maybe for a good cause, but he was still taking money.
And he wasn't on the up and up about it.
He wasn't on the up and up. So it turns out that it was Louis, and I did not guess this. Louis ran out the window, I think, and Edgar was an accomplice in the fact that he kept shouting.
Yeah, he put on the tantrum.
He put on the tantrum while this guy zoomed around the back end.
To help him. He disappeared from the room, and then he ran around.
He ran around, shot Gulbranson. Then he took the letter out of the typewriter before the cops got there. Okay, which the cops said, Jolly said there was a letter in there when she found him.
Oh, that's right.
And he's like, yes, but I didn't want Carrie Louise to see it because I didn't want her, he was going to write a letter saying that someone was poisoning her and she's fragile and I don't want it to get her upset, you know, all this kind of stuff. Anyway, so he was the killer. But also interesting enough, by the end, we found out that Edgar Lawson was actually Louis's real son.
Yeah.
There's a big scene where Edgar runs out to the lake to, I guess, kill himself. And Louis tries to save him. He's an older man. And he dies. He drowns. They both drown.
Yeah.
And then we have this very poignant scene at the end there where Mildred and Carrie Louise kind of reconnect. And you can kind of see them just with one word, you know, it's like... Carrie Louise looks at Mildred and she's like, Mildred, and Mildred's like, mother, and she takes her by the elbow and they arm in arm walk back up to the house. So there's a sense that maybe now Mildred will get the attention.
And there's also some disclosure about the other daughter, which is that she's the daughter of a murderess.
Oh, yeah, okay, that was a lot to take in. I don't feel like it had anything
to do with it. It didn't need to be there.
It was like a red herring there. She's trying to throw you off track with this.
But it might have accounted for why she had additional affection for this girl, because she knew...
Let's explain to the audience.
So it turns out that... what was her name again?
Pippa.
No. That she was the daughter of a murderess who was
a poisoner.
Who was executed, and Carrie Louise knew her, and so she knew that she knew of the circumstances that the girl came from, and out of sympathy, and again, she didn't think that she could have another child or that she would have one. That maybe that's where the affection came from. You know.
Yes.
I'm going to kill you guys. Seriously. Come here, baby.
Okay. So.
No, not you. Come here.
So yeah, so it ends like that.
Please. Okay. No.
Oh God, these dogs. So anyway, it was a interesting, fun little read. It flew by.
Aside from the double drownings at the end, it was a fun read.
It was a fun read. Also, they threw in some romantic drama, where Miss Marple kind of picked up on the fact that the Resterick brothers were both in love with Gina. Yeah. Oh, sorry, Alex also gets killed in this. Forgot to mention that. At the theater set, because he had seen something, or he had figured out how it would have been done, because he's got a stage eye, you know. And that's where it made Miss Marple start to think, oh, Alex was onto something, and she started envisioning things as a set. I forgot to mention that. Yeah, but anyway... So Wally's was just, they kind of set him up to be the bad guy, but he really wasn't. And at the end, you find out, you know, he wanted to go back to America with her without Gina, because he could see that she was kind of mooning around with this other guy. But at the end, she's like, I'm going to America with my husband, and so everything's all good. Okay, now the adaptations. So the first one we watched was with, who was it, Julia what?
Mackenzie.
Okay. I haven't watched many of those.
And so it was kind of awkward because in the first episode that she does, and I don't know which episode it is, you're introduced to her. There's a very short scene, and you're kind of introduced to her. Like, there's a new elderly lady.
There's a new sheriff in town.
Well, sitting down in her armchair by the fire. And so you kind of missed out on that. I mean, it's just a minute long, but so you kind of dived in. But
okay, I dove in. I thought she looked fine, as you know, like for Miss Marple.
Daisy.
But we started watching it, and again, it was one of those adaptations where it was like, what am I watching?
Yeah.
Does this have anything to do with the novel I just finished?
No.
No. I hated it.
You were annoyed.
I was doing some electric coloring on my Kindle. I was listening, but I'm like, you guys have effed this book
You're
up
like,
so
that
bad.
didn't happen. That didn't happen. And then the shifting in your seat, and that
I
didn't
was
happen.
shifting, and I was like, come on. I'm like, that didn't happen. They have Edgar busting. Oh, okay. First of all, the cast. I really enjoyed the fact that
cast was
Brian
great.
Cox was in it, the guy from Succession, and many multiple other things. You know.
Yep.
So he plays Lewis. But in the beginning, they have him rehearsing a play wearing a Native American headdress with the feather, and they're acting out some drama in the Great Hall with lights, and I'm like, that didn't happen. They just they were having coffee in the hall.
Right.
So they're acting out a play. Gina's this, dressed as Hiawatha. I don't know what the hell was going on.
Yeah. Sexy Hiawatha.
Yeah, they have all the drama does not take place off stage in the study, which is key to the damn story. Instead, Edgar comes in, he starts shooting up the room. They tackle him down. I mean, they murdered this plot line. They changed so many things. What else about it was just off? I mean, so many things.
It was I don't know. It was too condensed, and it was just rewritten so severely that.
Yes.
Although Penelope Wilson as Carrie Louise, and
I did like the one from Downton Abbey.
yeah, and
No, she was with Hickson. Wasn't she?
no,
Oh shit. Okay.
no, she wasn't. And Joan Collins,
Oh,
she was great.
don't get me started on this.
Okay.
So the first one, Joan Collins is in a fire in her house. She
that's how it
plays
starts,
Ruth,
right.
Carrie Louise's sister. In the novel, she's just having a conversation with Miss Marple about, will you go out there and see what's going on? But instead, we've got Joan Collins at age 89 in a bedroom, and then, it's my house is on fire. And then she's running outside. And I'm thinking, if this is all we see of her, wow, she signed on to a very short project.
It's
Silly
dramatic,
me,
but, yeah.
silly me. I should have known. They're not going to pay Joan Collins to come on here without reinserting her into a full storyline.
She comes back to the house, yeah.
And Ruth is barely in the book.
Yeah.
But instead, we've got Joan Collins flip-flotting around. And
I need to protect my sister.
don't give me a break. So the Joan Collins appearance did not impress me. If it was meant to, it didn't.
I did like the scene where they're having lunch or whatever, and she says something really like just aggrandizing. She's like, "Can you believe that we're the same age? Can you hardly believe, Jane?"
Miss
And Jane's
Marple.
like, "Fuck you!" And no, she didn't say that at all. She's like, "Yes, I can't believe. I mean, although to look at you, you look like a dewy 12-year-old,
And she didn't.
Yeah.
She looked rode hard and put up wet.
No, she looks fine. But I was like, stop doing this to Jane Marple. Anyway.
You know what? Jane was owning her age, and she looked very beautiful for her age. Whereas Joan Collins, I'm sorry, but is she still alive?
Don't say it. Yes, she is. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Joan Collins. People do a lot of work when they don't need to, and it shows later on. Anyway, I'm all for the all natural look. So that steaming pile of poo, I did not like it. So I was like, let's move into the Joan Hickson adaptation.
Yeah. And at first you were annoyed by that too.
I was, because again, it didn't start off the way I thought. Now, let me just say this. Perhaps in a script writer's eye, the book, the way this is written, does not lend itself to an engaging hour and a half of drama. Okay, I get that, right? So I think they had to change up a few things to make it, again, they were trying to really play on this theme of the theater and the stage, which I get. But, okay, let me just say this. I liked the cast in the Joan Hickson, except for Lewis and the who played Carrie Louise in the second one?
Gene Simmons.
And
She's
I found
wonderful.
out she had
I love Gene Simmons.
I didn't know she was a fancy dancy lady.
I love her.
She loves her. So yeah, I liked Brian Cox as Lewis in the first one. The other guy who played Lewis was really just kind of...
Joss somebody. He was the bad guy in in Lethal Weapon 2, Joss Ackland. And so it's kind of like...
how do you know this?
Because he was the bad guy in Lethal Weapon 2. But he's kind of like the point I made about casting Zoe Wanamaker is that they're always the bad guys when you see them. So I was like, it's Lewis. Even before I'd read the book, I was like, I don't think Joss Whedon has been a good guy in anything.
Joss Whedon.
Joss Whedon. Well, Joss Whedon hasn't been a good guy in anything
that's
lately.
Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Joss Ackland, apologies. Joss Whedon has his own issues, though, as we all know. But
yes, he does. So there were some cast members I liked better. I thought it was a little bit corny that over time in the second with the Hickson adaptation, the guy who played, I liked the guy who played Wally, because he had a real American accent.
Oh, yeah.
The guy in the first one was desperately trying to not sound British.
Yeah.
But every time he walked into a room, they got this corny, like, roundabout American
I didn't
theme.
even notice that.
Oh, you didn't notice the guitar and the banjo?
No.
Like he was like some down-home country American boy.
John Wayne
It kind of
playing in the background.
It was horrible. I'm like, he's not... What is this? Like Willie Nelson
The
over
other
here.
thing that the Hickson adaptation had was that they brought back Slack and his constable.
I did like
and I
Inspector
think,
Slack.
and I am so hesitant to even say that I think, because of the amount of mistakes that I made in the previous video, I want to say that Hickson requested that he come back. Because I watched an interview with that actor and the actor who plays his constable, and whose name I'm forgetting now, and so that's a comic relationship, you know, because he's like, and that old hag and that old biddy and these people remind me of that. She's behind me, isn't she? You know, and there she is, and she's there in the background.
It was some good comedy.
It was pretty fun. He apologizes to her.
He walks right by her to go into a little room with a curtain, and he goes like this. He's like,
"You're calm. You're fine. You're professional."
And then he walks out to her. But he actually had kind words about her. He was telling his detective, he's like, you know who would have gotten into the minds of these people is this woman from St. Mary Mead. And then she's like, hello, Inspector. And he's like, what? Like, someone just walked over my grave.
No. Nemesis.
So, yes.
And then he's the one practicing magic tricks that kind of turns her. And so at one point he's like, oh, they do it with mirrors. And I'm like, on the nose.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Let me just say the scene of the... where everything goes down was more on point than the first one, because they actually did leave off stage into the study and you overhear them having the argument. So the Hickson adaptation was way closer to that. And what else about it? I'm trying to think. There were some other places where it diverged, and I didn't care for that.
They kind of made it tie in together at the end. I mean,
they tried to.
Yeah. The beginning was a bit wonky.
Yeah. So I can't say either one of them floated my boat. It didn't.
Seeing Marple in a performance arts theater at the beginning was a bit weird.
Oh, was that in the first one?
No, that was in Hickson's one.
Oh, see, that's the other thing. She goes
They were really trying to tie in the themes.
They were trying to tie in the theme of, stage and acting and all the artifice.
Yeah.
The second one, they really looked at these boys as like violent kids, like they were getting into fistfights, and Wally's breaking them up.
And so's Marple.
And Miss Marple. Yeah. So. Yeah, I don't know how I feel about any of it. The second kid, with the heavy-lidded eyes. Who was that kid? Was that with the? No, that was with the Julia McKenzie version. He kind of looked like a young Nick Stahl.
Oh, I know the guy. The guy who was playing the piano.
No, Edgar Lawson.
Oh, I see.
He kind of had these heavy eyes, and Anyway, so both adaptations left something to be desired, in my opinion.
I'm gonna sneeze.
Gonna sneeze.
Excuse me.
So we're thinking too, just a programming note, that maybe the next wrap up we're gonna make a live stream.
It was a suggestion.
We're gonna see if we can do it. We can see if we can get on some of your calendars in advance. I'll put like maybe a notice up and a day and time, and you guys just make sure that you're here for it.
If more than people,
we would love to see.
Say yes.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yes, we should ask you. Do you prefer this video or wrap up pre-recorded, or would you like to be involved and send in questions or make comments about about it. Of course, mind you, the rule being you have to have read the book and or have seen the adaptations.
Just make something up. It's fine.
No, we have to kind of hew to the stated purpose of these videos, which is to really dive into Agatha Christie's work.
Yeah.
Which now we're going to. Have you said everything you want to say about the adaptations?
I think so.
Okay.
It's just, it underwhelmed me. Now, I know it was Bill Rutenberg's favorite, and so this would be an instance where I'd really like to, if Bill called in, not called in, that's my dream.
The live chat.
You're live. Bill, go for it.
Bill from Bedford, Iowa.
That's right. You're on. To hear his thoughts in more or less in real time instead of the going back and forth with messages. But
yeah.
Because that's been his favorite book so far.
Yeah, and we're always curious about other people's experiences with these novels. Like, why did you hate it? Why did you really love it? Mm-hmm. It really just
what am I missing?
And what am I missing?
Yeah.
So, because we're not saying that we're the arbiters of judging on these books. These are just our subjective opinions. So,
yeah.
So as we move into talking about Agatha Christie's work and the recent revisions we've heard about. And I'm not sure if they're doing all of her books or some. I'm going to talk to you that I while I was reading this book, it was actually only a few pages after this wonderful exchange that she has with Lewis about, maybe it's okay to celebrate success. Mm-hmm. I mean, why be embarrassed by that? Mm-hmm. I'm reading it 4 pages later, and I read it, and I said, oh, I've got the one that has not been edited. This is like going to be gold in a few years.
Well, I just don't like that mentality either, because I feel like it's kind of a sales pitch either way, that people are like, oh, I have to buy these, even though I had no desire to buy them initially, and now I have to buy them to make a point. And so I'm like, so then the publisher wins. Or I'm going to buy the sort of cleaner versions
to make a point,
and then the publisher wins. And I'm like, oh, publisher.
Yeah,
although having said that, you got a lovely set from the publisher, so I take it all back. But I do kind of feel like it's a setup, and so I wonder if the outrage is manufactured. And
it's not manufactured because of the age we're living in, where everything is offensive to everyone at any time. Mm-hmm. And it's moved into the realm of the absurd. Mm-hmm. It's almost a parody of a parody of a parody. And we're just living in I feel like we're living in a madhouse.
Well, I just don't like anybody telling me what I can and can't say and what I can and can't read. And
it's called freedom.
And so I also I know that Christie's work has already gone through some modernization for the sake of making sense, and then also for words, and then there were none.
Right, which was tell the audience what that originally was.
Initially, it was a reference to a 19th century minstrel rhyme, which used the N-word, and then it was changed to 10 Little Indians, but
that's not correct either.
No, and now because the rhyme that's recited in the book is now 10 Little Soldier Boys, I think.
Yes.
And so I get it. I don't want that word on my bookshelf either, That's a simple cut. That's a straight up and down to me.
Well,
and as I've said in some of the comments, I'm like, well, why did you have to put that in to begin with? But if the name of the poem was the name of the poem, then okay. But it's cringy. It is very cringy.
And I cringed when I saw this. It was out of the mouth of the inspector, not out of the mouth of Miss Marple.
No.
So this led to our discussion off, off camera. We were just talking one day about it, and I said, you notice I came across this word. It was a bad word, and it made me cringe. And I'm like, oh, God, that's just so awful.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, so this one has not been read by a sensitivity reader. And I was like, but it's not coming out of Miss Marple's mouth. But I'm like, but it is coming out of Agatha Christie's fingertips, out of her mind. Mm-hmm. Does she feel this way, or is she trying to show the coarseness or the vulgarity or crassness of, and the racist, take from of a certain person.
Yeah, because it was the police officer. Was he talking about the obviousness of the crime? What
No.
was the context?
He was trying to say, he was trying, I'm not going to read it. I'm
not asking you to. But what was he trying to drive at? Was he being
saying, he said,
pithy and just like...
He said, Superintendent Blacker told me about you last night. Said you had a lot of experience of the seamy side of human nature. Well, now, let's have your point of view. And then he goes on to say, he's kind of said, so who's the bad guy in this whole thing? Mm-hmm. I'm rephrasing that.
Yeah.
Big time, in many ways.
So he's being breezy, to say the least.
Yeah. And he goes, the GI husband, after he says that line, and she's like, well, that would be very convenient for everybody. So she doesn't, upbraid him, but she doesn't even acknowledge that he said that.
Right.
But anyway... And then, I can see some other areas where she's, she kind of focuses on someone's facial, ethnic, like with Alex. I think she points out that because he was a child of a, I don't know.
He was biracial?
No. Well, first of all, it's like that she hasn't a problem with, talking about Gina's Italianness. Okay, so it's like they're going after
English
the Italians.
Have a problem with everybody
they
when
do.
It comes down
And then
to
she
it.
talked about one guy's face that she said it was like a Mongolian face, and I'm like, what?
Yeah.
I was like, let's not focus so much
there's
on
something,
that.
I think there's something in Body in the Library that talks about Irish people.
Yes.
So that almost washes off me because I'm like, been there, done that. Like that's how they did when I was growing up. It's like a Pollock joke. You know what I mean? I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying that was the frame of reference. And so, if it's this guy just being sort of far too breezy and glib in his assessment, was it this person or was it one of these juvenile delinquents down here? He certainly didn't say that,
No.
but was that his intent? Anyway,
No, it was bad.
He comes across as less than professional, certainly.
Yeah, it was bad.
And less than sensitive.
Less than sensitive.
And so
this, yeah.
Was that why she used it? Yeah.
But we won't have the answers, but this leads into a big, broader question about censorship. And also, there is value in reading things that might be offensive to you. Because you're going to learn a lot about history and a lot about how people used to think, right? And you can maybe actually have a measure of how things have gotten much better. People want to go around thinking everyone's so oppressed these days.
People don't say this anymore. They just think it loudly.
Well, I'm just saying it right here now because I've just about had enough.
Yeah, no, I get it.
I just really can't take it anymore. It's if something offends you, put it down. Don't read it. Walk away. That's your free will reaction.
Here's my issue with it. Christie isn't around anymore to manage these edits. And so part of me would like to know, is the estate okay with this? Like, who's driving this? Is it the publisher? Okay, what sign-off did they get from the family? And to what end? Because the woman isn't even around to defend herself anymore. And so even if she wanted to defend it or put it into context, we've lost that voice. We've lost that moment. Let it go. These are old books.
These are old books. Old books are going to have old customs,
and they're going to have shit
thinking.
in there that makes no sense too. It's like, what are you writing? You're writing a penny farthing. What the hell's a penny farthing? Like, what's a telephone? Like, kids reading these books are going to have more than one question about who's doing what and where. I don't know.
I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's just a nature of everyone has such thin skin anymore. I don't want to turn this into a generational thing, but I'm going to tell you,
do it. I
can't recognize the state that we're in from where I was back in 80s. Things started to turn in late 90s, but not much. But I'd say the last 10 years, everyone's gone fucking crazy. Excuse my language, but the world has gone fucking nuts.
But I would say, even if we pull our own experiences, being called a dyke or a faggot or whatever, tells you way more. Certainly, they're not strange words to me. There was a reason we couldn't come out in school. It was because we'd get our ass kicked. And so when it comes to language of hate or language of marginalization or insensitivity is the politest way to put it, but ways to denigrate people and sideline them and disempower them.
Yeah. We've been there.
We've been there, and we've been through
there.
it. And so to your point, I think you can look at it and go, that says way more about this character than it says about me reading
does.
this book. And I'm still here and I'm still alive. And
Right.
I can see the changes have been made and improvements have been made, if I care to look at it. But it is a great way of very sharply defining a character if you want to do that and say, this guy's a bigot. Here's how I show you in 5 words or less. You know, if that was her intent,
Yeah.
great.
Definitionally.
Yeah.
We can say we have empirical proof of
But
that.
but I think if they whitewashed some of, let's say it wasn't a racial thing, let's say it was a sexual orientation thing, it would be an absolute lie and falsehood to say, oh no, everybody got along. To hell they did. No, that's not how it was
That's
then.
right. And you need to know that.
And you need to know that to know that there were people who fought for a better day.
And achieved it.
And you're absolutely you're shortchanging
No.
all of that effort and all of that blood and sweat and tears towards some measure of equality. And I think that that's the bigger sin. You know,
Well said.
the people who marched, Martin Luther King, for God's sake, the man died for a better day. And don't pretend that everything was fine once upon a time, because it wasn't, and it still isn't. And so,
But it's better.
But don't give kids. You're taking away that valuable lesson.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think history teaches us, and it teaches us good things, it teaches us bad things, it teaches us uncomfortable things.
And it teaches us good things through bad things.
It's just, you're just kind of dumbing yourself down when you refuse to read things that reveal the ugliness of human.
Or that might cause you to think.
Well, I'm saying, yes, you're missing out on an opportunity to really have critical thinking abilities, you know?
Yeah.
To look at things analytically, not personally. That's the other thing. Sorry, I'm not trying to point. But everyone reads so personally. And there they go. See, they're really riled up.
Oh my God.
Stop.
Stop. Guys.
Can you tell them to... Hi, guys. We're going to keep rolling. These damn dogs. Okay. So just to wind this up, I just want to say that I do not support the idea to make...
It doesn't make the N word okay. It's not okay. It never was
No,
okay.
it isn't. I'm sorry, the dogs are just driving me nuts right now.
To pretend that people didn't use it with malice or malintent or hatred or bias or to slight people and to put them in a box is just absolutely untrue. And so I think the larger lesson is
you can't rewrite history.
Yeah.
I'm a historian, and history is it's everything to me. It's the best teacher there is, you know? And you have to be able to read things critically and not take it personally. The things that I listen to and read, a lot of times I come across things that I don't agree with. I read things, and especially regarding my faith. You know, I'm a gay person I am a Christian. Jesus Christ is Lord. You know, this is fundamentally who I am. Other Christians say, "Oh, that can't belong to me because, you know, I'm gay." It's like, well, you don't know me, and you don't know my life, and let God be the judge, because that's what God said. You can't judge people like that. So, but I can read things because I go for that content that is helpful, and then when I see things that pertain to me, and I'm like, okay, I know that's there.
Yeah.
I know a certain portion of people think this way.
Yep.
I don't let it keep me up at night.
But
There was a time that I did, and then I decided, no, I'm not going to. You just have to let things roll off your back, and it seems like our society is incapable of that.
Well, you also don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. And as it pertains to Christie, she's still a fine author. I really think that when you hit the point of cancelling authors and stuff like that, you may as well be burning books. And you remember when that happened last in history. And I think that we're on the verge of that point again. And it's fascist. That's what I think. I think it's really, really wrong. It's the wrong way to go, and it's not doing anybody any favors. And that's it. We should stop talking now.
Yes, we had a great talk.
It's a cracking book.
It is
the
a
next
cracking
one's
book.
better, though I will say that.
We did give you a warning in the last video that we were going to talk about the censorship. I think it's an important issue. Thank you for letting us just talk it out. And
For the 2 people still watching, your laundry's done, and your dinner's cooked, and so you're good.
This is our take on it. Just 2 mystery loving, Agatha Christie loving, history loving,
Not afraid of bad words, loving.
not afraid of bad words.
Don't use them,
put them in the
certain
proper
words
context.
ourselves,
We
but,
know we can learn from history. That's all I'm saying. And we can learn from literature that was created in another century or 2.
I don't think there's any malintent in Christie's heart, and I don't think if
so.
you judge on that, compared to Dahl or whatever, he was a dick. I think
was
Christie,
I never read Roald
misogynist,
Dahl.
anti-Semite, like really, really bad. And that's a through line. If you look at his biography and stuff that he said, he was really the last person in the world to write children's books. But the books that he wrote for kids are awesome, and they're really good, and they will keep kids up at night, and that's a great part. The kids love those books too, so it won't hurt them. I don't want people. I don't want the interesting curves and edges of authors' writings to be smoothed away.
Yeah.
It's more interesting to read about the wrinkles
Absolutely.
and put them in context.
Gosh, well said. Well said.
Yeah, we out.
We out. All right, guys. Well, thanks again.
Sorry about the dogs. They're jerks.
I know. And
They're not getting any dinner tonight.
No, they aren't.
A murder will be announced, and it will be a murder.
No, we're not.
4 puppies.
No, they're not. No. We love our puppies.
We'll have 4 new slippers this time next week.
So, as I said in our announcement video the other day, a couple days ago, we're reading A Pocket Full of Rye. Martine swears by it. She says it's fantastic.
It's great.
We're looking forward to diving into this one. So, in the comments below in this, if whoever's still around, if you could just let us know if you'd like us to do a live stream so you can join in, make comments. We do want you to read the book and or watch the adaptation so you can have, substantive, takes on it so that we can respond to that.
More of a back and forth. I think that's
more
what
of a
I'm
back and
looking for.
forth. Yeah. All right, guys. So thanks for joining us here on the History Shelf on our Marple a Month journey as we continue.
You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for all of the kind comments.
Yes.
And hey, if you disagree with what we said, smack us on the boards.
Don't write anything. Just kidding.
See, that's what they're saying to do now.
I'm just kidding. You can write below if you totally disagree.
I'll blame Peggy. It'll be fun.
Yeah, she does all the time. So. Yeah. All right, guys. So that's a wrap. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.